They say you should never make a deal with the devil, and that's exactly what I did. And now you might take that as some vague hyperbole or metaphor, but I can assure this was quite real, and it would be something I would later regret. You see, my name is Max Thorne, and this is my story, yo. A few years back, I was diagnosed with cancer. Me and my wife had just patched things up after a nasty breakup, and I had recently found out she was pregnant. I was gonna have a daughter. I couldn't believe it. My life was finally turning around, or so I thought. But then one day I woke up with this pain in my chest. It literally felt like my heart was on fire. I couldn't breathe. My wife walked in the room and saw me lying there on the floor, desperately gasping for air. So in a panic, she screams for help, and the neighbors call for an ambulance. Hours later, I woke up in a hospital bed with my wife beside me. She was crying. I was confused. She had this look of horror on her face that I'd never seen before. "What's wrong, honey?" I cried. She didn't reply. She just sobbed and stormed out of the room. The doctor approached me and asked how I was doing. I told him I was okay. He responded with, "Mr. Thorne, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I interrupted. Is it bad? Please don't tell me it's anything bad." "I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne. You've been diagnosed with cancer of the heart." He replied, "What? What do you mean? This is bullshit. I can't have cancer." No, it isn't true. "I have a daughter on the way," he said back in desperation. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne. There's nothing we can do," he remarked. "But there's gotta be something." The doctor shook his head. "Well, how long do I have?" I barked, "Well, according to our best estimates, you're looking at a few months to a year." He replied, No, this can't be happening. And oh God, I screamed in frustration. Just then I got up and stormed out of the hospital. As I left, I was approached by a stranger smoking a cigarette and donning a dark black trench coat and fedora. "Hey, you, let's talk for a second." He barked. "What? I don't know you. I ain't got time for this right now." I snarled back. He continued to follow me. "Who the hell even are you? Listen, you better back off." Before I could finish my sentence, he grabbed me by the shoulder. I suddenly fell silent. It was as though he had some kind of power over me. "I know you, Mr. Thorne. I know all about your diagnosis and how you would love to be around long enough to see your daughter grow up." He said with a grin. "I don't know who you are or how, me, and I don't know what kind of sick joke this is, but unless you're looking for trouble, back off," I snarled. "So you're in no position to be making demands, Mr. Thorne. Way I see it, you need my help. All I'm offering you is a chance to turn things around. If you think I'm full of crap, you're free to walk away at any time, and we'll end this conversation right here." He chuckled. I felt compelled to find out more, so I asked him, "What do you want? What the hell are you even talking about?" He laughed and said, "It's simple. You make a deal with me. I offer you immortality and the chance to witness your daughter grow up, and in return, I take something of value from you." "Fine," I barked back. "What choice do I even have?" I thought to myself, "So we have a deal, Mr. Thorne?" He laughed. Yeah, we have a deal." I replied, "Now tell me, who the hell are you?" I demanded they call me Mr. Morningstar. He said in a somber tone. And like that, everything began to fade. I slowly began to black out. Before I knew it, I woke in my bed. I asked my wife what had happened. "What do you mean?" she asked in a puzzled tone. But I was just at the hospital. I had been diagnosed with, I replied, but before I could finish, I could interrupt it with, "Babe, it was just a dream. Try to get some sleep. You got work in the morning." What? I couldn't believe it. I know I wasn't dreaming, but how did I now find myself lying in bed feeling fine and as though nothing had happened? Later that day, I went to the doctors for a medical exam, and they told me I was in perfect health and had nothing to worry about. I scratched my head in confusion. Did I really dream all of that? It seemed too real. There was no way I could have imagined all of that. Later on, I went to use the restroom at work, and as I was washing my hands, I looked in the mirror to see a figure in a dark black trench coat and fedora grinning back at me. I gasped and fell back in horror. I looked all around the restroom, but there was no one there. Was I going crazy? Maybe the stress from our recent breakup was taking a toll on my mental health. But if I told anyone what I saw, they'd just think I was crazy and dismiss what I said. So I decided to keep it myself. Fast forward a few years, I was happily married and my life was going well. My daughter was attending school, and I was finally happy and had long since forgotten about that incident at work. I wrote it off as stress and had concluded that it was all a bad dream. Me and my family were finally living a happy life. But then he showed up. Me and my daughter were eating ice cream at the park when I noticed the man in a dark black trench coat and fedora approach me. "I've come to collect." He growled. Just then pulled my daughter toward him, and I saw what seemed like some kind of portal open up behind him. "What? No? Get the hell off her." I yelled, "Didn't anyone ever tell you not to make a deal with the devil, Mr. Thorne?" He chuckled. "Daddy." My daughter screamed, but it was too late. He drew her in and the portal closed, never to see them again. Fast forward to the present day. I hadn't seen my daughter for 15 years. I had concluded that this Mr. Morningstar, the guy who made that deal with all those years ago, was in fact the devil himself. And when he said he'd take something of value from me in return for my immortality, he was referring to what I value the most. My daughter. What have I done? I thought to myself, but see, I'd never given up hope. I kept telling myself I'd get revenge and that I'd find my daughter, even if it meant I had to wage war against the devil's armies and go to hell myself. I'd do whatever it takes or so I thought. But as I write these notes in my journal, I find myself at a loss for words. Although I vowed to take my revenge and be a thorn in the devil's side, I did find my daughter again, but it was not as I expected. You see, on her absence, she'd been raised by the devil, and she is now one of the devil's most feared generals. And the worst part is she blames me for that deal I made all those years ago, and it's all my fault, and now I'm responsible. But the thought of killing my own daughter, no, I could never do that. And so if you're reading this journal, my story has no doubt reached its end, and my fate has finally been sealed with a bullet.